Hello friends, I am Dr. Kunjan Patel, Associate Professor, Ophthalmology, Medical College, Surat. Today we are going to discuss something about primary open-angle glaucoma. At the end of the lecture, students must know something about history, intraocular pressures, definition, classification of glaucoma, how you will evaluate the glaucoma, so what are the symptoms of glaucoma, and there are list of investigation to rule out glaucoma, and something about treatment modality of glaucoma in forms of medical therapy, laser therapy, and surgical therapy. So historical aspect of glaucoma, the term glaucoma derived from Old Greek word glucose, which means grayish blue, and basically first Hippocrates defined glaucoma as disease of elderly patient in which the pupilla become blue. So the history goes very back, and person with swollen cornea and rapidly developing cataract and chronic elevated intraocular pressure inside the eye. So this is how the history goes. So what is intraocular pressure? That is the pressure inside the eye. It is called intraocular pressure, and pressure is measured in millimeter of mercury. It's not a constant number. It ranges from 10 to 21 millimeter of mercury. And when it is above 21 mm of Hg, we consider it a high IOP. So what is glaucoma? There are so many, up till now, so many definition comes, but currently glaucoma is defined as progressive optic neuropathy, which cause permanent blindness by damaging optic nerves and peripheral visual field. It affects around 3% of society, and it is one of the second most cause for the permanent blindness all over the world, and it is prevalent more in elderly population. When we classify the glaucoma, there are various classifications up till now available. So many classifications are based on etiology, anatomy, and clinical presentation. One classification by the time of onset is congenital glaucoma and acquired glaucoma. In that, there is a primary and secondary glaucoma. So there is a list of glaucoma you can divide, but we are going to concentrate more on primary open-angle glaucoma today. So primary open-angle glaucoma, it is called POAG, is described as optic nerve damage from multiple possible causes that is chronic and progress over time. A loss of optic nerve fiber is characteristic of disease, and it is characterized by open angle, high pressure, visual field abnormalities, and disc changes in form of cupping and atrophy of the optic disc. What may be the cause for POAG? The exact cause is up till now not known. The most important cause for POAG is increased IOP. And cause of high IOP is generally accepted to be because of an imbalance in production and drainage of aqueous humor. The aqueous humor, the fluid is continuously being produced but cannot be drained because of the improperly functioning drainage channel. That is called trabecular meshwork. So it will lead to the increase in intraocular pressure. So you can see there is a outflow pathways and resistance point. In this figure you can see it is produced here. It comes from posterior chamber to anterior chamber between iris and anterior lens capsule margin, and ultimately it goes in drainage system in trabecular meshwork that lies in the angle of anterior chamber. So whenever there is the problem in this drainage system, the pressure is going to rise, and ultimately this is the part of the optic disc. It is going to be affected by the rise in intraocular pressure, and that will lead to the damage of optic nerve, and the process of glaucoma start. So you can see these are the pictures of trabecular meshwork. Last one is the electron microscopy of the trabecular meshwork, and you can see these are the parts of a trabecular meshwork. It has three parts like juxtacanaliculaire, corneoscleral, and uveal part. You can see here from there it goes into scleral spur, and from there it will go out into the outlet channels and ultimately the veins. And this is how the production and drainage occurs of aqueous humor. What changes occur in glaucoma? That is the damage. The basis of glaucomatous damage is the loss of retinal ganglion cells. The ganglion cell constitute the retinal nerve fiber layer and their axons die during the process of glaucoma. So we have 4 to 5 variants of primary open angle glaucoma. First one is a primary open angle glaucoma. In this you will have a raised IOP, optic disc changes and field changes. Second one is a normal tension glaucoma. In this you have a normal tension but field changes and disc changes are there. Third one is a juvenile open angle glaucoma, is usually applied when the diagnosis occur very early, particularly between the age of 4 to 35 years of age. Fourth one is the ocular hypertension. In this you will have a normal optic disc and visual field but raised intraocular pressure. And fifth one is a glaucoma suspect. Patient is having suspicious optic disc and visual field regardless of IOP. So basically you need to differentiate between all these 5 categories. So it is for that we need to evaluate the patient thoroughly to get established diagnosis of glaucoma, because once we start treatment for glaucoma it will continue for lifelong. So at this juncture we need to try hard to get a established diagnosis of glaucoma. In epidemiology, POAG is prevalent in 6% of white population, 16% in black population and 3% in Asian population. It is the most common type of glaucoma. Globally it affected 67 million people worldwide, and out of that 10% is estimated to be blind, and glaucoma is responsible for 14% of total blindness. So what is the pathogenesis of raised IOP in POAG? As we discussed, the glaucoma is multifactorial and complex disease. The main mechanism for raised IOP is obstruction of aqueous humor through open angle, and there are some pathological changes in angle structures. There are so many factors responsible are multifactorial: genetic, aging, race, ocular risk factors, some of the risk systemic disease, and patient having some history of drugs. So there is a raised intraocular pressure because of problem in drainage. Few reasons for that is reduced aqueous outflow facility due to the failure of aqueous outflow pump mechanism. There is a thickening and sclerosis of trabecular meshes with faulty collagen tissue, and narrowing of intertrabecular spaces, and there is a deposition of amorphous material in juxtacanalicular space. And sometimes there is a collapse of Scamm's canal and absence of giant vacuoles in cells lining it, reduced aqueous outflow facility. This will lead to the problem in outflow pump mechanism, and that will lead to the raised intraocular pressure. So here you can see in figure there is a complex pathogenesis for raised intraocular pressures. So many parts of the angle structures are affected microscopically, and this will ultimately lead to the raised intraocular pressure. So what occurs to the optic disc? That is called glaucomatous optic neuropathy, and the pathogenesis for that is direct mechanical damage to retinal nerve fiber. Second is ischemic damage, and sometimes both mechanisms are going to play for damage. So mechanical, there is a pressure on lamina cribrosa when there is intraocular pressure is rise. So it is going to alter the capillary blood flow, and that will lead to the ganglion cell death. With mechanical pressure on lamina cribrosa, there is a backward displacement and compaction of the laminar plates, narrowing the opening through which the axon pass. So there is a compression to the passing axon. That will lead to the ganglion cell death. In vascular theory, there is, with rise in intraocular pressure, there is a decrease in the capillary blood flow. This will again lead to the ganglion cell death. And wherever there is a mechanical pressure on lamina cribrosa, there is a mechanical compression of vessel at lamina cribrosa. So that will again lead to the ganglion cell death. And now coming to the clinical features. In symptoms, most of the cases are asymptomatic until the visual field abnormality become very much prominent and it affects the central vision of the patient. Thus, the annual routine examination is essential for early diagnosis of the primary open angle glaucoma. So, it is called one of the silent thief of sight. You can see there is a progressive visual field loss and with loss of vision in case of glaucoma if you don't diagnose early and don't treat it on time. So for evaluation of glaucoma, you need to go for visual acuity, base corrective visual acuity. You need to find out. You need to see slit lamp biomicroscopy. That will lead to some specific diagnosis. You need to measure intraocular pressure. You will have applanation tonometry. That is gold standard, and that is the name given by Goldman applanation tonometry. And for screening purposes, you can use non-contact tonometry also. There are list of investigation like pachymetry is there. You need to evaluate the angle chamber by gonioscopy. You need to go for visual field testing. You need to measure diode variation, and you need to see the fundus and diagnose glaucoma, and you need to record it, the fundus photography for future evaluation. And there are some latest advanced investigation like in form of the OCT also that will analyze the nerve fiber layer, and provocative test is there, but nowadays we are not doing provocative test. In that we are advised patient to water drink for a long time, and we see the changes of intraocular pressure. So in tonometry, it is a method to measure the pressure inside the eyeball. Because the IOP varies from hour to hour, and in an individual, we need to measure diurnal variation, particularly from different parts of the day. Ideally, you can measure at night also, but sometimes it is practically not possible. So you can measure at different times of day also. Whenever there is a difference between the diurnal variation of 5 mm mercury, you need to suspect glaucoma. Whenever there is a 3 mm mercury difference between the two eyes, you need to suspect for glaucoma. So there are various IOP measuring techniques, but the gold standard is applanation tonometry. There are some non-contact tonometry also, like Perkins, non-contact, COS tonometer, TonoPen. Nowadays we are not using COS tonometer because indentation tonometry is not ideal against applanation tonometry. So second point is we are going to measure the pachymetry. Pachymetry is going to measure, we are going to measure the central corneal thickness. Ideally the central corneal thickness varies from 500 to 520 microns. Whenever the cornea is thinner, like less than 500 micron, it gives falsely low pressure. So in such cases, we miss the diagnosis of glaucoma. And whenever the pachymetry is more than 600 micron, we used to get falsely high pressure. So in these cases, we may overtreat the patient. So pachymetry is ideal for to see for the central thickness of the cornea, to put proper importance in diagnosis of that corneal thickness. Third one is a gonioscopy. Gonioscopy is performed to check the drainage angle of eye. There is a specific gonio lens is available, and the test is determined to check for open angle or close angle or narrow angle. There are 4 parts we are going to see if the eye angle is open, like Solbes line, trabecular meshwork, scleral spur, and ciliary body band. There are various classification available, like Schaeffer's classification, in which we grade the angle of anterior chamber from grade 0 to grade 4, and this will help to differentiate between angle closure, open angle, and narrow angle glaucoma. Most important thing is a visual field testing. We go for visual field testing for peripheral field of vision. It typically by using an automated visual field analyzer machine. The test is done to rule out any visual field defect due to glaucoma. But the key point here is that whenever there is a damage of optic disc or nerve fiber of more than 30 to 40%, then we are going to evaluate changes. We can going to see changes in perimetry. So to get diagnosis or of field defect, at least 30 to 40% of the optic nerve fiber has to be lost. Then and then we can get diagnosis. So our aim is always to diagnose the glaucoma as early possible. So we are going to use OCT for that to diagnose pre-perimetric glaucoma. So depending upon the glaucomatous damage, perimetric can be repeated every yearly, or maybe the high risk cases we can repeat every 2 monthly also. The field defect of glaucoma progress very slowly, and there are relative parasitous scotoma, Rones nasal step, Siddle scotoma, arcuate scotoma, double arcuate scotoma, and ultimately the end stage glaucoma will have a central tubular field of vision. So that machine is automated perimeter machine, and the field defect you can see in chronologically advanced to end stage glaucoma. This is Siddle scotoma, and this is the advanced glaucomatous damage which lead to the advanced field loss. Fifth one is the optic nerve head analysis. Each optic nerve we have to examine for any damage or any abnormalities. This requires routine dilation of pupil to adequately examine the optic nerve. We can go for fundus photography of the optic disc and surrounding region for future reference also. And there are different imaging systems available for documentation of the optic nerve and detect the changes over a period of time. So in fundoscopy we are going to evaluate disc, we are going to evaluate peripapillary region changes also, we are going to see about the vessels, and fourth one is nerve fiber layers. So this figure shows that this is a normal optic disc, and this figure shows that patient is having an enlarged cup disc ratio and patient is having advanced glaucomatous damage. So in optic disc you need to see about the cup, that is a pale area surrounded by the neuroretinal rim. Normal cup disc ratio is around 0.3 to 0.4 millimeter, and the disc is vertically around, diameter is around 1.8 millimeter, horizontally it is around 1.5 millimeter, and normal CD ratio as we discussed is around 0.3 to 0.4 mm. The neuroretinal rim is broader inferiorly, followed by the superiorly, then followed by nasal and temporal. So there is a name called Eisen rule is there. In glaucoma, the Eisen rule is break. What are the signs, specific signs we see in optic disc, that is like focal ischemic disc? Whenever patient is having myopic fundus, we will have to differentiate with myopia and glaucoma. We need to work hard for this. Sometimes the sclerosis are there and there is a concentrically enlarged disc are there. This is concentrically enlarged disc. You can see the cup disc ratio is there, the neuroretinal rim is also the thin out, and the nasalization of vessels is there. There are some non-specific signs for glaucomatous damage like disc hemorrhage, bearing of circumnuclear blood vessels, bayoneting sign, collateral blood vessels, loss of nasal NRR and lamellar dot signs, and sharpened edge or sharpened rim, or maybe you can see the specific notch are there. So there is a loss of nasal neuroretinal rim and lamellar dot sign you can easily identify in this case. So these are some of the grayish area in this yellow background. This is the lamellar dot signs. Some of the advancement in form of confocal scanning laser ophthalmoscopy and HRT for the evaluation of the disc for future reference also, and you can compare it, the changes in future also when you take such pictures. The catch is here, we need to differentiate between normal tension glaucoma and ocular hypertension and primary open angle glaucoma. So for that you need to work hard for evaluation, and you need to be very specific for this evaluation. So what are the general treatment options available for glaucoma? So the goal of glaucoma treatment is to reduce pressure. It is the only modifiable risk factor up till now we can see throughout the history. So we need to reduce the intraocular pressure as much as possible that the damage to the optic nerve fiber is halted. And for there are three types of treatment available, that is medical therapy, laser therapy and surgical therapies. In medical therapy we can have aqueous suppression and outflow facility drugs. In aqueous suppression we have a beta blocker. In that we have a non-selective beta blocker in form of timolol, levobiolol, cardiolol and selective beta blocker, that is all bitexolol. Selective means cardioselective. So whenever patient is having cardiac problem, asthma, we can't give non-selective beta blocker in form of timolol. In that cases we need to give bitexolol. Second category of drug is adrenergic agonist in form of selective alpha-2 agonist, apraclonidine and brimonidine. Third one is a carboxy anhydrous inhibitor, that is of sulfur group of drugs, and in systemic we use acetazolamide. The common name is Dimox, and topically we use dorzolamide and zinzolamide. So the basic principle behind this medical therapy is we are going to reduce the aqueous production. For that we have a three category of drugs available: beta blockers, selective alpha-2 agonists and carbonic anhydrous inhibitors. And second, how we can increase the outflow. For that we have a cholinergic drugs in form of pilocarpine and prostaglandin analog in form of latanoprose, travoprose and bimetoprose. Depending upon the condition of the patient and intraocular pressure and visual field damage and optic disc damage, we can start some fixed combination drugs also. The most of the fixed combination drugs are available with timolol. So timolol is available with dorzolamide, with timolol with latanoprose and timolol with travoprose all are available. And timolol with pilocarpine is also available. Nowadays we are seeing a combination of carbonic anhydrous inhibitors with prostaglandin analog also. Up till now, timolol is considered to be the first line treatment for glaucoma, particularly in developing countries like our. But now there is a change in mentality. Nowadays we consider prostaglandin analog as the first line of treatment. It has many side effects also, like in systemic side effect, patient will develop flu-like symptoms, headache, precipitation of migraine in susceptible individuals, muscle, joint pain, skin rash. These are some systemic side effects of prostaglandins. In ocular side effect, patient will have a conjunctival hyperemia, foreign body sensation. There is one specific side effect is eyelash lengthening, thickening, hyperpigmentation, an increase in number of eyelashes. So there are in some of the countries it is also used as a off-label treatment by the skin specialist for this cosmetic purpose also. Patient will develop iris hyperpigmentation and increased severity and recurrence of herpetic keratitis also, and it also produces anterior uveitis and cystoid macular edema. Whenever patient is on prostaglandin and we want to operate patient for cataract surgery, we need to stop this prostaglandin analogs before 1 to 2 months before the cataract surgery to reduce the chances of precipitation of HSV keratitis, anterior uveitis and cystoid macular edema. The second is beta blocker. It has also have a systemic side effect in form of cardiovascular effect, as we mentioned, bradycardia, arrhythmia, heart failure, respiratory reaction in form of bronchospasm, airway obstruction, and it also produces some CNS depression, anxiety, confusion, drowsiness, disorientation, and some of the non-common, non-significant side effects like nausea, diarrhea, decreased libido, skin rashes, and alopecia. In ocular side effect, it also produces conjunctival hyperemia, superficial punctate keratitis, corneal anesthesia, and dry eye. So the contraindication for beta blockers, as we discussed, is bronchial asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, heart block, congestive cardiac failure, and cardiomyopathy. So you need to ask specific history before starting beta blockers. Third group is carbonic anhydrase inhibitor. It is of sulfur groups of drug. So you need to ask any history of allergy to sulfur groups, which is very much common. And in systemic side effect, it will produce paresthesia, numbness, and metabolic acidosis, hypokalemia, increased serum urate level, urinary frequencies, and anorexia, clumps, cramps, weight loss, and major side effects like Stevens-Johnson syndrome also when patient is having allergy to these drugs. Second modality of treatment is laser therapy. For primary open angle glaucoma, we can use argon laser trabeculoplasty and selective laser trabeculoplasty. Nowadays, we are more concentrated on selective laser trabeculoplasty because it is repeatable and you can use it many times also. With all kind of treatment, with laser treatment, medical therapy, and full-blown medical therapy, if patient is having raised intraocular pressure, very low vision, and having a painful blind eye, then you need to go for destructive surgeries in form of cytoprotocoagulation, that may be way of transscleral with laser, Nd:YAG laser, diode laser. You can go with transpupillary argon laser cytoprotocoagulation, transvitreal also during vitrectomy, and endoscopic argon laser cytoprotocoagulation is also there. So this is a picture showing the diode laser cytoprotocoagulation, because we need to reduce the pain of the patient. If the eye is having no vision and it is having a quite pain, we need to go for painful, in such painful blind eye, the destructive procedure which lead to reduced production of aqueous humor, and ultimately over a period of time the pain is going to reduce. In surgery, we have many surgery available. There are so many advancements also. The commonest surgery will be a filtration surgery in form of trabeculectomy, and nowadays there are so many advancements in form of non-patented surgery also. And lastly, we can go for sun implant in form of the Ahmed glaucoma valve also. We are going to make a new opening in the sclera for drainage of aqueous in trabeculectomy. You can see in this we are going to create some space in the conjunctiva, subconjunctiva for the drainage, and that is called trabeculectomy surgery. What are the indication of surgery? Whenever failure of conservative therapy to achieve adequate IOP control, and patient is having maximum medical management, still patient is not under control, intraocular pressure not under control, and progressive deterioration of the patient despite adequate IOP control. And if patient prefer, and in some of the patient is not putting drops properly, we can go for surgical management. There are so many advancements, and advancement is also coming in form of non-penetrating keratoplasty. It will reduce the complication of penetrating surgeries. And lastly, we are having sun drainage suns. In that, we are going to put a valve in the subconjunctival space, and in this we are going to create a channel between the anterior chamber and sun subtenon space. So this is Ahmed glaucoma valve, but you need to counsel the patient properly for glaucoma management, because once we start treatment, it is going to continue for a long, and we need to check the patient frequently, and we need to counsel the patient to prevent blindness. Thank you.